people like to use the government to legalize theft.
And what's interesting about that, too, is it's defined as compassionate. So in other words, using government, the law, the power of government, to take something from someone and give it to somebody else, or to take something from a generation that's not yet born. You know, we have over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities, $21 trillion in fiscal operating debt. Mm-hmm. There's going to be $1 trillion deficit this year. Mm-hmm. They just voted one of the most massive budgets in American history. The Republicans did. The president signed it. 3 generations from now, 2 generations from now, those kids are going to have to deal with this. So even when it comes to their own children and grandchildren, do you think parents who love their children and grandchildren, do you think they delude themselves into thinking, well, that's them, that's this ambiguous future generation, my kids will be fine? What's the mindset there?
Well, I think here's the problem, is that the big collapse will not come until 2030 or 2040. And any congressman who will take steps now to prevent the big collapse, he's going to be thrown out of office. That is, the major big problem in our spending is Social Security and Medicare. Any congressman talking about doing something about Social Security, doing something about Medicare, he's going to be run out of office. And by the people who are over 65 who vote in large numbers. So we have to ask ourselves the question, is it reasonable for us to expect a politician to do what he considers to be political suicide? I say no. It's unreasonable for us to expect that of a politician. So politicians are running, a congressman, his time horizons is 2 years, not 15 or 20 years. It's 2 years. And so that's what we have to live with.
So that is a circular problem then, because these people will continue to do what they're doing, these politicians. In fact, they grab more and more power from the private sector, from the individual, and yet they don't have the ability, either because of the public or because of their own lack of will, to do what needs to be done 20, 30, 40 years out.
That's right.
So what happens to a country?
If people will say, well, what can we do? And I ask, are the American people, as human beings, are we any different from the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, the British, great empires of the past who went down the tubes for doing roughly what we're doing, bread and circuses? And I say, well, maybe we're not that different, and maybe we're going to share the same future as those other great empires of the past. Keep in mind, we have betrayed the founding fathers of our country. I mean, if you look at Federalist Paper 45, when James Madison was writing Federalist Paper 45, he was trying to convince the citizens of New York to ratify the Constitution. And they were afraid to ratify the Constitution. And he said, the powers that we've delegated to the federal government are few and well-defined and restricted mostly to external affairs. The powers left with the people in the state are indefinite and numerous. If you turn that upside down, we have what we have now. The powers of the federal government are indefinite and numerous.
Would you agree with me that in many respects we now live in to follow up on your point, a post-con